Hey guys, it's Eriko. Welcome back to Life in Alterations. I actually had another topic planned for this episode, but I decided to talk about my visit to the Sumo Expo instead, since it's more timely topic now that the May Sumo tournament started last Sunday. If you're listening on Spotify, I have a video turned on for this episode so you can see all the costume and textile details I'm talking about. And if the video isn't showing up on your platform, I will also have the full version uploaded on YouTube. So go to the link in my profile. So I have actually been following Smo more closely over the last few years because of my parents. They love Smo. When I was a child, I always wondered why my grandparents and my parents would sit there watching Smo all the time and get so emotionally invested in, because to the 6-year-old Eriko, it was just all about two people pushing each other almost naked. And there was nothing really interesting to me then. But as I've gotten older, I kind of get it now. The art and ritual appreciation of it. Maybe it's a sign of maturity, or maybe I'm just becoming more like my grandparents. Either way, apparently there is a Sumo Expo happening at the Keio department store in Shinjuku, so I had to go. Now, quick disclaimer before we start. I'm definitely still a beginner Sumo fan. I am not a Sumo expert, historian, or anything like that. I honestly went because I was curious and wanted to explore the event from the perspective of someone who is interested in performance culture, costumes, and traditional craft. It ended up being a really fun and approachable event, even for casual fans. So I invited my friend to come along, and she's also not super familiar with Sumo, but she thought it was fun, so she came along with me. Yes, I have at least one friend in Tokyo. So the expo itself was mostly centered around merchandise and fan culture. There were tons of items themed around famous rikishi, towels, keychains, snacks, shirts, you name it, all the things you would expect. But mixed into that were educational displays, photo spots, and exhibits explaining parts of sumo culture and tournament traditions. It actually felt less like a formal expo and more like a fan event built around traditional culture, which I think is probably a smart way to introduce newer audiences to sumo in the 2020s. And as expected, the part I immediately got distracted by was the costumes and textiles. There were 3 full outfits on display: 2 rikishi summer kimono and gyoji the referee attire display. On top of that, there were 2 keshomawashi, the ceremonial aprons worn during the ring entering ceremonies. Seeing them up close was honestly just incredible. One of the displays included full gyoji attire with hitatare, the ceremonial robes, and kikutoji, those little round flower-shaped tassels and cords running along the sleeves and trouser hems. The gunbai, the referee fan, even had the matching tassel cords, which was such a satisfying detail to see up close. And then there were the rikishi somenuki summer kimono displays. This was like super exciting. Apparently somenuki are only permitted for makuuchi ranked sekitori. There was a summer kimono worn by Hokuto Fuji with his shikona, his professional ring name, dyed directly into the fabric. Seeing that level of personalization in something that also functions as stylish, everyday, business casual wear was really interesting. There was also Takara Fuji's summer kimono featuring a takarabune, or treasure ship motif, which is considered lucky imagery in Japan and is also connected to his shikona. And honestly, one of my favorite details was that you could actually see his asejimi, the sweat stains around the collar area. I know most of you guys are like, what the hell right now, but I know that this sounds really strange to say, but I genuinely loved seeing those signs of wear because honestly, that's the part that makes traditional culture feel alive to me. Not pristine perfection behind glass, but evidence that these are real garments connected to actual people, repetition, ritual, movement, and physical labor. The two keshomashi on display were also incredible to see in person. From the side, I could finally understand just how thick they actually are. On TV, they always look relatively flat, but in person, the structure and weight become much more obvious. And honestly, they looked incredibly heavy even just sitting on display. The embroidery itself looked machine stitched to me, but some of the outlining and framing details around the embroidery almost looked hand finished, perhaps. It also looked like some embroidery section may have been constructed separately and then attached onto the base by hand. I really wish I could have touched it just so that I could study the construction more closely. I could absolutely be wrong about the process though, so if anyone knows more about how keshomashi are actually made, please let me know. But what really satisfied me was being able to see the backside of keshomashi, the kinran, the traditional Japanese brocade fabric, often woven with gold and silver threads. That part, it's something audiences normally never get to see because it's touching the Rikishi's body side. So you could also see the details like maedare through the ami, the mesh, along with the thickness of the wide tsuna, those cords and button fringes. As someone who comes from a costume and theater background, I always end up paying attention to the visible labor behind performance culture. And this was one of those moments where you can really feel how much work and skill goes into maintaining these traditions. That said, I do have one slightly nitpicky costume person comment. I don't think that Rikishi kimono display were styled particularly well. The arms are tucked awkwardly inside the sides of the kimono underneath the obi, the waist sash belt thingy, and in some places, you could literally see the plastic bags being used as a stuffing underneath, which I understand why museums and exhibit do that sometimes, but it flattened the elegance of the garments a little bit. And as someone who has dressed mannequins for costume exhibits across a wide range of body types and costume styles, I definitely had the thought of, oh, let me help you with this. Which is maybe the most costume department sentence possible. Still, overall, I genuinely really enjoyed the event. I think what impressed me the most was how accessible it felt. You certainly didn't need deep knowledge of sumo to enjoy yourself. You could just wander in, look at beautiful craftsmanship, buy merch, learn a few new things, take photos, and get excited for the upcoming tournament. And honestly, I think that kind of casual entry point is really important if traditional culture wants to continue surviving and evolving in modern Japan. Anyway, now I'm just really even more excited for the summer tournament. And if you are also a beginner sumo fan like me, honestly, this kind of expo is a pretty fun place to start. It's only going until May 14th, 2026. So if you're around, you should definitely go. It's actually kind of nice being around parts of Japanese culture that I couldn't really experience while living in the Midwest in the States. And honestly, this is one of the things I really like about moving back to Japan and moving to Tokyo specifically. There's just so much access to traditional culture here in a very casual, everyday way. So there you go. I think this is it for this week. I will see you next time.